I will call the meeting to order at 4:30. Trustee Addison is currently absent. And everyone else is present. Welcome, Ms. Kedler. Before we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, we understand that we have a new signage up and we need to fix a couple of typos, but we wanted to just try it out for a moment. But we know that there are some typos that we will be correcting. If we may stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I get an approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
A motion by Trustee Garrison and a second by Candelaria Orr to approve the agenda. Preferential?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? And Trustee Addison is absent. Public comment on non-agenda items. The public must address the board the public may address the board on any consent or non-agenda item pursuant to the Brown Act. During this period, the Brown Act cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
No, and nothing was received online either.
Discussion action. Consideration and possible action on the facilities master plan.
So we have Van Pelt Construction Services here to help us with our facilities master plan. So would you like to come to the podium? And there you go. Do you know if we got this ahead of time?
The presentation? I did send it over. There's somebody in it.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's in the way. Perfect.
You just want to tell me forward, I can do that too.
Okay, perfect.
Ready to move on?
Yep. Thank you so much. I'm Jennifer Gibb. I am a program manager for Van Pelt Construction Services. I've been supporting the district over the several years on master planning, and I'm happy to be here. I was here back in October of this last year, and we talked about bringing forth the opportunity to the board to just dive a little deeper into our facilities needs, and so that's what we're here to do tonight. I'm going to, again, just refresh everyone where we've been, where we currently are in some of the projects that we have, and then where we have the opportunity to go based on the funding available. If you could go to the next slide. Okay, where we've been, next slide. Just timeline of events, you've seen this before, but just for anyone who's watching who hasn't been a part of the process, back in June of 2016, we being the board, Cloverdale board, adopted the facilities master plan. It identified $139 million worth of projects. In November of 2018, Measure H passed, and you had $46 million of local funding here to complete those projects. Between 18 and 23, you did district-wide projects, several projects, marquee projects. You did some stuff at Jefferson, the middle school, the high school. Lots of great things that have been supporting your community to date, and also fell, almost $100 million short of the need identified in 2016. Between the beginning of March and today, we submitted a funding application for transitional kindergarten and kindergarten classrooms for 8 classrooms. In September of this year, you were awarded the TKK grant, and you've started that process. And then again, I said I was here back in October, and the board invited me back to review the funding and available opportunities you have moving forward. Next slide. That's just a little brief information about Measure H and what you really did complete. The marquee projects was this 2-story building at the elementary school, your gymnasium at the middle school, and then your athletic spaces at the high school. Next slide. Nope. 2 slides, sorry. One more. There. I apologize. Okay, where we are right now. So all of your Measure H money has been spent on your projects, and you had a little bit of money in your fund balance, about $1.5 million left. The board allocated that in a process to the TK as you just went down the TK project, right? And FDK stands for full day kinder. So you're building 8 classrooms. What I have is the top is your revenue, and the construction hard is your actual cost, and then any remaining funds. So we're looking at dollars in the millions. Budget-wise, I'm using 1.5 as our base budget for district funds. The state came in and they said they're going to give you $5.4 million for the 8 classrooms. And then you also had a district match, but you qualified for financial hardship, so you got another $1.8 million. And then there's some pending projects that you submitted to the state, and you're going to get reimbursement this year, May, June. You'll actually get cash in hand, and that's $4.5 million. So in regards to the funding that you have available, you have $13.2 million available. Actual cash in hand, you have to the right 1.5 cash in hand, district fund balance, and the state gave you advanced funding for the design of your project, which was another $1.3 million. So you have $2.8 million available. Then we look at our TK project and working with your, Glenn, it's not updated. Sorry. Can you get out of it and refresh it real quick? There, now put it back up, sorry. Slideshow. Oh, there's some money is missing. Okay. Sorry, well, those were zeros, and now there's something there. Construction and hard and soft. What does that mean? So your actual bricks and mortar is your hard, and your soft costs are things, your inspection, your permitting fees, all the other inclusive things not included in if we like emptied out the building, right? It's all the other things. So working with Kevin Little, who's your construction manager, he's estimating $11 million for the TKFDK project for the 8 classrooms and all the associated site work. So far to date, you spent approximately $300,000, a little under that. So we are looking at remaining funds with the projected monies that you are getting in May of $2.2 million available for you to allocate. And then in regards to cash in hand, you have the 2.5 available. So I just want to take a thoughtful pause there. Is there any questions from the board? But really what we're looking at for the next phase is what do we do with that $2.2 million? Okay.
Does this budget for TK include all the site work?
Correct. Per Kevin, it's all inclusive. Or total scope. It includes your soft, includes all your consultants, I know there was discussion of a multi-purpose room in the future. That is not included in this cost. So this is just for your site package and your classroom package, as required by the California Department of Education for Title V.
So the parking lot and the drop-off and all that?
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, so next is your state funding eligibility. So this is Monies that, and I worked with King Consulting, who's your funding consultant, on acquiring this information. This is as of December 2023, and this is money that you're not in line for. This is like, if you wanted to do a project and you want to put in an application, you still have access. It's sitting in a little pot waiting for you. That being said, there's no more state funding available. We need a future state bond, but as you've done in the past, and if the board wishes to continue to do so, you have submitted projects for reimbursement and or getting in line for when a state bond passes, not if, right? There will be one. There's two proposed measures, SB 28 and AB 247, that are going through legislation, and one of them is potentially going to make the November ballot. So really, why do I want you to understand this? This will help inform, or could help inform, how you direct your $2.2 million that you have, and we're going to go to that. But you have eligibility of almost $1.2 million at Jefferson that you could get matched. I'm looking in the state share, the yellow highlighted column. Washington, 1.7 almost. Cloverdale High, 3.5 million. JH, almost 200,000. And for a total of eligibility district-wide in your modernization of almost $6.6 million. So that's an opportunity that we can go in and get matched with our 2.2 cash that we'll have by June. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Next slide. It's a little small, but I'll speak to it. This is just a milestone for your project, just to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on. In March, the project team plans to submit the plans to the Division of State Architecture and California Department of Education, and they will work with the district to bring to the board any and all consultants needed to continue that process. While we're in this waiting period between March and June, about 3 months, we'll be coming to you and kind of just getting the project ready for to go. Around June, we expect to receive the Division of State Architecture and California Department of Education approval. That's for your plans, your structural, life safety, and accessibility from DSA, and then California Department of Education will be approving the Title V components of our classrooms. Those are required processes for your state funding application. And then you will also, once we have those approvals, you will get your final funding apportionment from the state. So the remaining monies that they authorized, they will be getting you because you passed the approval process. So you'll get cash in hand around June, July for those apportionments. In August, the project team is going to start construction, and so they'll be coordinating with the site for site constraints, because we know that we have an active campus, but full steam ahead on that project, and they do expect, and it is still trending for occupancy in January of 2025, which is pretty tight, but the way that the project's being delivered, they are still tracking and really well for that delivery date. Any questions on the timeline? All right. Where are we going to go? So you have two options to kind of spend your money, that $2.2 million, and that's really like cash in hand, what we have, and what we want to be thoughtful about. So option one would be to design and actually build something with your 2.2 project to be determined by the board, and then you would leverage that and as appropriate and wait for a reimbursement. Option two, you could design something for your next project and just get in line. So you don't actually build it, but you get all the state approvals, submit the application, and then wait. Because you have the opportunity to leverage the funding below in those different sites, you could make your money kind of make you money, right? But there's some things that you need to think about is there's escalation, right? So if we build today, the cost of what we build today, tomorrow is going to cost more. So we are sitting on that. You do get a grant amount does increase with the CPI annually, but never as much as probably escalation. So, there's opportunity. And so as we kind of go through this next, it's really open for discussion and just for the board to share what they believe is a priority or what you'd like to kind of direct myself and district staff on. But think about those as your options. And then when we start thinking about the projects that you know are of priority, we would then go back and look at, okay, how can we leverage that? Can we leverage it today and do it in today's dollars, or do we want to get it in line and wait? The only thing, sorry, I was going to say something about the $2.2 million. The $2.2 million can be accessed when you get so you're going to get about approximately $4.5 million from the state in June. Of that, you're going to allocate 2.3 to your current project because you're committed to that. And the 2.2 can be spent as you feel free. You can spend it day one that you receive it, as long as it's not related to the TK project. So that's why we kind of push the 2.3 aside. That sits and waits till you spend all the regular grant money you got from the TK project. That's just sitting in a pot, and then you spend that like first in, first out, right, for that TK monies. And then the 2.2, though, you can start spending that day one you get it, as long as it's not related to the TK project. So the next slides are really just open for discussion and decisions. These are our sites that we're talking about. I know we've talked about lots of different projects and opportunities that you have on these sites, but I really open it up for board discussion and support on how and what you'd like to move forward with.
Does that 11 million construction budget have a contingency built into it?
Yes, that the 11 million is the program budget, so it does include contingency, correct.
About 10% or?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but definitely I can check in with our team and get that back to staff for you.
Patty?
Can we go back to that slide and look at that slide?
Yeah, of course. Slide, keep going.
Back, yeah.
One more. Yep. Oh, one more.
Keep going.
There.
Are we going to raise our developer fees to the new limit? The developer fee limit just went up.
It did.
Mhm.
Didn't, I thought it was in our, sorry. I thought it was in our last board packet on the developer fees item. Am I mistaken?
I don't think we passed a resolution. to
It
raise-
wasn't,
It was not, no.
Right?
it wasn't, but something was there on developer fees increasing.
Well, we just took in a bunch of developer fees.
Oh, that's what.
That's what it was, okay.
Patty, I believe it was we reported on the developer
Yeah.
fees, right?
Correct, that was the annual reporting for the 22-23 developer fees.
Correct.
Do
But we
they-
have received notification from King Consulting. We have a contract with them for the developer fee review of the new amount coming in, so that will be coming before the board for a developer fee study.
So can I ask, do they raise the developer fees as annually or
Every 2 years.
every 2 years? Now, does that mean all of the developments that have already gotten approval are locked in at the previous one, or?
Yes. They pay as they receive the permits to build.
Yeah, they have to pay before they get their
But there's
permit.
board takes action, and then there's a wait time of 60 days, I believe, before they can be imposed the new state allocation board's amount.
So we
So
want to
there's a
get those approved really
timeline to
fast.
it, yeah.
Okay.
What would be the con of not increasing it? People wouldn't develop here? I can't see that
There's no
happening.
con. It's
So,
pretty
yeah, I would say
insignificant.
if we have the opportunity to increase, we should increase it.
It would be possibly if the district wasn't spending their developer fees, but we
We're
will be
spending.
spending our developer
Yeah.
fees. Thank you.
I mean, I guess my question is, and we haven't had the presentation yet, but looking at the south property, we talked about possibly developing for staff housing. Is that something that I can't, because we haven't had the presentation, that we have to invest in, or that the developer kind of, how does that whole thing work? So like, I guess I'm wondering, do we have to put any money into that other than what we've already done to get that project started? Or is that kind of gonna go on its own? But then again, we haven't had the presentation, so I don't.
Yeah, and it depends. I would say that it depends on which way we decide to go. I don't know that there's ever been a developer that builds it and then we do like an agreement type of thing. I think it's supposed to have been, from what I'm gathering, mostly been districts have basically hired somebody to build it.
Okay.
Put the money up front, basically either by a loan or by the money they've got.
Okay.
And then do it that way. So that'd be an interesting question to ask the company that comes next month.
I mean, we clearly have lots of projects that we could put the money towards. It's just what's the priority, I guess.
Well, and there's pros and cons for me for both options, so I'm kind of split down the middle, to be honest with you. And if anyone has a great argument for one or over the other, then I'm happy and very open to that, because I'm kind of split at the moment.
What are the options?
Well, spending the 2.2
No.
immediately or leveraging it for possibly 6.6.
I would just, if I could, I would just say that in our district, I would feel like that probably the site that's in most disarray would be the JEH site, for sure. I mean, those buildings are buildings. They're just portables, basically. And so, and I'm talking about, when I say the whole site, I'm not just talking about JEH and those two buildings. I'm talking about, I think it's the Four Cs in one and then the other in the other. So, and those are actually in worse shape than the front one. There's in the worst shape than all of them. As far as what I can see, as far as, the shape of the buildings.
Worse than the district office and the student service office.
Those are bad too, yeah. But as far as students that are housed there, yeah, academic.
But if you did it with if JH were the chosen priority, you could do two-story buildings and
Mhm.
actually
And have a
get
district office,
a
yeah.
district office on the foundation you're already building
Mhm.
for those
Agreed.
classrooms.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, they're both in bad shape, but I would say student housing part, or as far as classroom space goes, those seem to be, especially after the TKK thing, we're going to get rid of almost all the portables at, matter of fact, all the portables at at Jefferson. So that would leave just a very few, which most of them would be congregated at JEH, because that's comprised entirely of portables.
So could the money be used to design a project like that at JH and/or an MPR at Jefferson
Yes.
so that it's in line?
Absolutely, and if you go to the next slide, that might help it, just inform the conversation. Yep, perfect. So at Jefferson, you have $1.1 million available. You could absolutely use that money to start the design, get it in line. You have access to that modernization money as soon as you get CD and DSA approval, and then when the state bond passes. So getting in line today would just put you closer to getting that money when the state bond passes. At JEH, you have almost $200,000 available, so it's not a significant amount, but you could
It's a
access
sidewalk
it.
across the front.
Yeah.
I know.
Is there any funding for
It's a
like
parking lot.
district office, student service office, or is there no funding? Only
If classes are held and students are enrolled in a space, then it has eligibility. So currently, right now, your district office isn't having full-time class.
You
in
can't
the
legally
space, so
put a
no.
student into that building. so.
Yeah.
But if I'm correct, the 2.2 that we would have, right, would be, hold on. Option one, you'd be able to use the full 2.2 to do
Correct.
JEH, for example, right?
Correct. So we could do some cost analysis on that project at JEH, looking at it as a single story, looking at it as a two-story, as an opportunity for classroom space and district office, absolutely. And you could use that all 100% to design and build.
You get 1.5 classrooms out of that budget.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And
Right?
JEH, yeah, so at JEH, you may have the opportunity for smaller class sizes. So CDE considers a class 700 square feet or more. 960 is the standard that they prefer. And given the program, you could go down to 700 square feet. But remember that if you try to put more kids in that and use it as a space other than what it's currently, we always recommend build the facility for the facility, not for the program that you're currently serving, because it has to last for 50 years, right?
Well, I think, isn't there a percentage of the student body that we have to keep for JEH students? That's why we are limited to 20 kids? Is there
There's
something?
not a percent, there's a maximum.
A max?
Because
Percent
there's
you
only a
can have.
certain number of staffing there. We
Well,
could
but-
add more if we had another staff.
But you can only, it's capped at 10%
That's what I'm talking, the 10% of our
correct.
student body, or I guess the high school
high school
level.
student body, right,
But
correct.
we could double it if it's 20 then, right? Or sorry, if it's 40, if it's 10%.
We would need double the student
Oh.
population at the high school though.
No,
The high
because
school's
400.
Approximately 400. So we could have 40 students at JH. Right?
But I don't know that that helps us with the 2.2.
No.
No, I was just talking about the
Yeah,
building it for, what Jennifer said about building it for
Programs.
the
yeah,
program, not what you
although I
want.
think you would have to have, if you were to, you could go up to 40 because the high school has 400, so 10% of that would be 40. However, I would think that would definitely increase staffing, for sure.
Right.
What's the current JH square footage right now? Do we know?
At JH?
Yeah. The square, it's because we were talking about square footage. What's our current?
I would say
Pretty
it's probably more
reasonable
like her
size, double
960, I think, probably. Maybe a little bit bigger, but I'd say maybe 1,000 square feet, probably.
It's at least 1,000.
here.
It's
Yeah.
good size. I don't know my glasses.
It says JEH, Eagle Creek Continuation Schools. It's on page 56 of the facility master plan. It's, the total is 3,840. JEH modular is 2,880, and the Eagle Creek, the one next door, is 960.
Okay. And currently, right now, we're using Eagle Creek, bless you, to, it's somewhat kind of their extra space, basically. They've got a ping pong table in there. It's kind of like their basketball court indoor, basically. And then right behind that's where they're going to looking at putting the garden. So both of them are being used, but like I said, I think that, and again, in that site, those are actually the two probably in better shape modulars than the other one. I know the front one there is really bad, which I think is where the other, not the Four Cs, but the other, I can't
Head
think of it.
Start.
Thank you, Head Start is right now. Yeah. But I agree with Preston, I don't know if 2.2 is going to get you very far.
Well, we can do some cost analysis on that to house the current program and look at an opportunity to bring over the DO in some sort of fashion for capacity for what we're currently in student services. So we'll add that and bring that as an opportunity. It doesn't hurt to look at it, and then we can also, we'll break it down into the design component as well as the construction so that you can view it from both option 1 and option 2 as an opportunity.
So we have 3.5 million available for CHS.
Mm-hmm.
Could we have a CHS classroom there as part of our JEH build and capture some of that money?
It is, that's a good.
I'm with you.
Normally, the process is that it would be on the existing campus that
That is
creates
existing.
at, you mean at moving JEH over to
No.
CHS?
No, if we built something
So
over there.
where
we
it
had
generates is where you have to use it. But you do have a measure of new construction eligibility that I was just looking at, we could do, it's called use of grants, and we can use it from the K-6 level and use it at the high school level to build a new classroom.
Where's the JEH-CHS borderline defined?
Based on the campus that it's,
But JEH
But
students
they're
come and take
contiguous.
classes
Correct.
here, so how is that not
all
interchangeable?
correct,
contiguous.
it's the physical APN that generates, and the buildings on that APN that generate the modernization eligibility.
Are they separate APNs?
Yes. I
We're
will
certain?
confirm. No, I'm not, but I will confirm.
Both the high school campus, the football field, the JEH, there are multiple APLs, about 15 different ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I like where you're going.
Can we do a lot line adjustment and make them one APN?
We could, we can talk to the OPSC team, Office of Public School Construction team, and let them know that there's an opportunity for
An opportunity to
program.
clean up all these lot lines, all these parcels, and just have one clean one.
Well, even just from a program standpoint, I'm not going to speak for the board, but if a program was created that CHS students are on JEH, then
We
How
have
do
one
we-
site. We all graduate together. We go to classes at the various sites. This is not some separate little bucket over there that people go into. It's a contiguous program between the two. We share administration. We share teachers. We share the site. It's not a stretch at all. That JEH is part of our high school program. And you can look at that through administration, through graduation requirements, through graduation. It is a continuation school which is part of our high school.
I will look into that. I think that's a great idea.
Is state share money only applicable to structure, or can it be used for some of the site work, parking?
It is
Associated with it.
associated with pupil grants, which are generated by classrooms. So the site work, we do site development worksheets to augment, so it could potentially be more. New construction, if you had to purchase a site, and let's say the south property, we know we purchased that and we haven't done anything to it yet, we could go in for site acquisition. So there's site acquisition when you buy new sites, or site development, off and on-site development as it relates to the increase in capacity or modernization of the site.
So this is, all of this, you said this was what can't be associated with the TK, K development, correct? Or the
Separate,
2.2,
yep.
what did you,
The
it's separate?
2.2 is for you to do, it's not associated with the TK, and we can spend it on day one we receive it.
Okay, so so the idea of an NPR at Jefferson, that would not be associated with the TKK, correct?
Correct, that would be
Because
a
it's
new
all of
project,
them.
absolutely. So you could, that's a great one to kind of go down. You could start designing the future NPR at JES, and then get it in line for reimbursement. You could do a few different things with a multipurpose room. If we have a classroom in it, we could get new construction for a classroom, right? If there's a space dedicated, we call it a classroom. Like sometimes a stage area can be considered a classroom
So-
space, as well as accessing your modernization
I'm just
eligibility.
thinking about like PE at Jefferson. That's considered a class, right?
Has to be,
If
there
they
has
use
to be
it.
technically students in it,
Right.
80% of the time of use, of the day, 80% of the time for it to be full.
Which I
Students
mean-
eating or students in class?
Student in class,
class.
enrolled in a
Okay.
class, yeah.
Well, I guess that would, we would have to, Michelle would probably be the best one, but I know all the kids are doing PE throughout the day, so what time they're doing it, if the different grades are doing it different times and rotating into the cafeteria.
Absolutely, if
NPR,
that's
that might
considered your
qualify.
PE classroom and we have enrollment that we can assign to that, then it would qualify.
Yeah. I know last time we discussed which site we were going with, either JH or JES. I know JH was one of the sites that we wanted to look into, and we knew that there was a need to do so. And so I'm interested in just getting more information on like cost analysis and design component of what would be feasible and whether or not we would be able to work with CHS, since they are kind of the same program. But I also understand that there's a need for the MPR, so could we also get some information on like what that would look like for the MPR cost?
Yeah, what we can do is we can do a square footage analysis based on what the minimum square footage of California Department of Education requires for or recommends for your current ADA, and then we'll work with King, your demographer, to project out with your TK and full day kinder classrooms coming on to include those as well. And so we can just say the current price per square foot is X. California Department of Education would recommend this many square feet for MPR. It would be inclusive of these components: eating, gathering, classroom, kitchen, bathroom, whatever those are, and this is the price for that. And then we can break it down by a design fee and a construction fee. So you could understand, again, looking at both options.
Yeah.
Okay?
Do you recall what our gym cost at Washington, roughly?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but let me see what
5 million? 10 million? Okay.
I should know this.
I should know this, but.
It was, in your master plan, it was estimated at 5.8 million. So
Should've gone with
That's what
my
it was
gut,
estimated.
huh?
What did it end up being?
I don't
No,
know
I
the
think we
final, but
were
it's probably pretty
close.
close to that, yeah.
But that's just a gym. That doesn't
Right.
include an NPR. You're gonna have to have. a lot more
NPRs are,
staff in it.
but a gym is much larger than an NPR, so.
So if you had a $6 million
About
budget
$6
for
million.
an NPR, say, at Jefferson Elementary, you'd need about 1.2 million to do the soft costs.
Mhm.
So,
And you, on these projects that you potentially, on option 2, that you want to get in line for, you could just take them up to construction document submittal to the state agencies. So there is another component of the design fee, that's your construction administration, when they're actually physically building it and closing out, et cetera. So we would be able to only do the first portion of this and pay for that, and then know that there's still a second portion if and when you pick up the project to construct it. But that would also limit the amount of soft costs that you would be funding in the beginning. So it can also break that down in those percentages if you would like that as well.
If we did option 2, we'd have a design upfront fee, right? Because we'd need to plan what we're having, that we're gonna
Correct.
submit for, and then once it gets approved, then we would get that. But upfront, we would have an expense that we would be spending.
Correct.
Not
You-
knowing if or when it would be accepted.
Yes, correct. So what you would be doing in option 2 is you would be doing any site surveys, your, geotech. If there was a CEQA component, you would be looking at that then, and your design up until permitting, submission to the state agencies. And then you would wait. And you would then, once you got the state funding, you would then bring on a contractor and you would build it. Though the plans are good for 4 years. So once you get approval from the state agencies, it's a 4-year. That would get you through a code cycle. If you didn't have the funding to do it, by the 4th year, you would need to go and you would need to update it to the current code cycle. It would be not as extreme as redoing the set of plans or doing them from start, but you would still need to get them up to current code, building code standards.
it looks like under option 2, you could probably feasibly do the design for an MPR at Jefferson and JEH and be ready to capture these state share dollars. But unfortunately, under option one, there's not enough money to design and build anything. Maybe a bathroom. No. I think, what did our bathroom cost? 1.2 million?
When it all said and done.
And 3 years?
I don't want to discount or, ignore Washington and this high school site. JH is, we consider that part of it, but what are other needs at those sites that we should consider? Has anyone brought anything forward? I mean, I know these are ones that we've discussed before, but I don't know if there's other things that we should consider at the other two sites.
You mean as far as the high school and the middle school?
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
middle school, do they need a new admin office?
I mean, the
Like,
high-
we're
Do
talking
they
about
need
big things, but
Yeah,
what
and the
about
high school
other
definitely
things?
has, they
Yeah.
both definitely have their share of portables, for sure. But in my estimation, I'm not a contractor, obviously, but they're not as bad a shape. That's why I just kind of said
Okay.
the other two. But we've also spent a sizable amount of money on both Washington and the high school sites more recently than anywhere else.
And I
Right,
know
except for, the only one that really hasn't had it would be JEH.
And JES is getting the new TKK wing.
Right,
But they
and they-
also have the most
12
students.
new classrooms.
Right.
do.
But they also, I'm
Right.
just thinking of population. They
Correct.
have the most students at that
Yes.
site.
And I would say, once those are done, the MPR is woefully under. Yes, agreed. I was more looking at it from a standpoint of what haven't we touched,
Correct.
basically. But
And I-
by no means are all the facilities in great shape.
Yeah.
But
I believe that we did have that discussion of if there is extra funding, maybe we can look at ways to.
correct.
So,
And so I would say that probably, sorry, Ashley,
No,
but I
you're
would say that just based on the not touched part, and then also the fact that it would be woefully small for what the future JES will look like after the new classroom stuff too. I would say those, to me, kind of are glaring.
Yeah, and JES also is, with TK, it's adding 25% approximately to their
Mhm.
population. So we're going from that site's, over the course of a few years, is having to accommodate 100+ more students than it
Potentially,
used to
yeah.
have to accommodate.
so is this all, I know this is all facility related, but does it have to be new construction or could it be modifications to current things? Does it?
You can absolutely modernize. So with modernization money, you can't add any additional square feet. You have to do like a like for like, right?
Right.
Which means you take, like JEH, we would be removing those older portables and replacing with new construction, but the square footage wasn't increasing, so that's called mod like for like. But you can build new construction you can modernize with this money as well. Most of the time, we're not modernizing portables, like
Right.
we're replacing them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
you can
cafeteria,
modernize the
but-
cafeteria.
I mean, a little bit more, just for reference, just because I have a wrestler and I've been dealing with the wrestlers. Like, so we have a high school wrestling team and a middle school wrestling team, and they've never had a designated space for them, and they have humongous mats that are really expensive that have to get moved around. Right now, they're all practicing in the Washington cafeteria and rolling the mats up, and they're just against the wall, and there's kids in there all day. They're getting destroyed, and those are $15,000 mats. We've never had anywhere to store our mats, and that's a school asset, but there's things like a rack to put them up during the day and stuff like that. Would that be modernization if you're adding something to a facility?
Yes. There would be a way to package it. Would this be at the high school or at the middle school?
Middle school.
Yeah, there'd be a way to package it and do other work on that site to make it an eligible application. So when you're thinking about these applications, you have to have, there's a calculation, but it's about $1 million project to access those funds, or at JEH, because there's only 200,000, we'll just max out whatever we can get there. But on the project, on the districts that have more funding, usually you go for $1 million. That's like the minimum
Okay.
application. So we would just be thoughtful at the middle school. At the middle school, you have opportunity for portable replacement. There was talk one time of two-story building there, and ways to modernize the existing field spaces. If the existing field is there and you, let's say, turn it, I'm not speaking for the district, but in other districts, we've taken natural turf and moved it to synthetic turf, as long as it's the same space of what it was used for. That's considered modernization. Same with basketball, courts, resurfacing them, replacing them, that's considered modernization. Those types of things, the outdoor amphitheaters, I'm just kind of
Yeah.
pulling. But at Washington, it was opportunity for classrooms. I know we discussed that in past meetings.
I think it was
getting
classrooms and then the admin on top of the classrooms.
Yeah.
So you can capture.
Yeah, space. Yeah, I mean, I think you know your district better than I, but you have a limited amount of acreage, right? We're working with smaller, as we grow, we're not, a lot of times you can grow out, but as you've already done at JES, you're growing up as well. Yeah.
Well, another thing too to think about would be is there's, with the south property, whatever we decide to do with that, there is, there's some money sitting there within that, even if you were to sell it, that would free up some money potentially also. To add to the 2.2 would be able to do different things too, so.
Correct, and there's other districts that we're working right now with money that we have or we know we're going to get. That's kind of what's presented tonight. But to that point, we've looked at future opportunities. How much is this appraised for? Is there an opportunity to sell XYZ properties within your district? Are there other types of funding that, the state initiatives, like some districts are using their ELOT money for buildings, physical buildings. So we have districts using that, or the KIT money. So for kitchen equipment, as you go to do NPR. So we're multi-funding projects. There's Cal Green Fire for outdoor spaces. I mean, there's lots of different grant opportunities, and what I presented to you this evening is known monies that you either are getting and or have available in a pot waiting for you.
So just one thing, this may be a stupid question, but if you could explain exactly what you mean, like on the first line there with Jefferson Elementary, district share and state share. So you're saying basically that if the district comes up with $773,000, the state would then pony up 1.1 in addition to that, or how does that work?
Correct. So the state modernization program is a 60-40 match. So your total project is the sum of both those two numbers at a minimum. So you could have a, $3 million project, and the state will only give you $1.1 million.
Right, but essentially, like if you look at Jefferson Elementary, you essentially could get a let's say $9 million or almost a $2 million project and only cost you $773,000.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's the difference between doing all today. You could take that to, that's almost $2 million, right? So you could take that $2.2 million, do your project today at Jefferson for 2.2, whatever that consists of, complete it, get in line, and wait for your 1.1 to come a couple years down the road. Or you can do the design for a $6.6 million plus worth of work, right? And then get in line for all of that and then get that and build it later. So it's,
Can we invest that $2.2 million while we're waiting in line?
The state does,
No.
frowns a little bit upon you making money on their money. So it is important to put that into high priority capital needs, but.
So in other words, no.
You do get a small amount of interest.
Yeah. Besides the one classroom at JH potentially for CHS, is there any other opportunities that we would want to look into just costing out at CHS because you have such a significant amount of eligibility there?
Well, I guess my question at JEH is, would the 4Cs and the Head Start program, those are housing students full-time, do those count?
Not
or-
ours, though.
But they're not ours, not in district. Not that we couldn't build them to house our own students, but that wouldn't be modernization funds because it's not a separate school. And we don't.
You're asking for CHS specifically, and I know we've had talks about just our yard, our bus yard. And I'm not sure where that falls under
It probably wouldn't
It's
be
not a
modernization
classroom, though,
funds because it's
at
not
all.
classrooms.
Because it's not classroom.
Yeah,
It's
we could
just
do
we're-
the parking lot.
Okay.
But we wouldn't be able to build like a bus barn or a maintenance with we wouldn't be able to get matched monies for it.
Okay.
We could absolutely
Use the 2.2.
use the money for it, and the money generated once we did a student-based program construction, and we got the 3.3 back or 3.5 back, we could spend that on district or maintenance, but it wouldn't be an eligible reimbursement.
For me, I don't want to waste anyone's time and say, oh, let's look and see about building new classrooms and admin at Washington. If that's not really something we're looking at doing, I feel like that's just wasting people's time. So to me, the priority would be Jefferson's, NPR, and then JEH's, and possibly with just the classrooms, but also that would be option one, and then also adding the admin district office there. I know this is putting the cart way before the horse, but like also looking at reconfiguring the whole site because of how it's structured, it doesn't make sense how it is with one in the front, the side, so I know.
Which site? What do you?
JH.
And I think that's really what Jennifer and I talked about. That was really what we were looking at for this meeting, is to give us some sort of direction. That way we can kind of put, because it all boils down to the numbers, right? So that way we can put something, and to your point, Jackie, I agree. I think we should, to me, like 2 priorities to get information back would be helpful.
What about 3?
What about, and we can do whatever, but I'm just saying, some finite amount that we could get, that we could kind of go on our way and bring back some tangible information that we could do.
And I also like JH and MPR, and then I was thinking, I know that you brought up,
Washington
because
cafeteria.
MPR would be adding a new facility to our campuses that we could potentially have our facility use and permit. And thinking about the need to have a space for wrestling, could we assemble the MPR to already come with like the mat and the raising and have, like I would like, and also I think
Yeah.
you were gonna ask for the Washington cafeteria to see how much that would cost for modernization, but would we be able to, I don't know, the MPR, like with that cost? Does that make sense?
Yes, what I'm hearing, just let me confirm, is at
So many ideas.
at Jefferson, cost out an NPR with storage for high school wrestling for
And middle school.
off use outside of
school.
JES's school time. It would be a
Yes.
available, another resource, community resource for you.
Did we not already look at having that in there? Or was it decided
So-
that the space was too small to have it in there? I feel like when Dr. Yakich was there, that we looked at that, and I don't know why it never happened.
I think that was before my time, but the history of it, there's 2 stages that the wrestling mats have been stored at Jefferson and at Washington. and they get moved around a lot, and other things have taken over, and now there's just no home for them.
But I feel like we looked at having the so that they can hang
Roll 'em,
up.
and then they roll up
yeah,
out of the way, yeah.
At Jefferson, and
I
I
don't
don't know.
remember that
And I
so
guess
before
what would
we-
the, if we were just to, have that on its own and not be part of what is the cost of it? If we were to-
$15,000
15,000?
for one.
And how many would we need? Two? But do them, and then whatever site you have it at, that's the site that they would stay at? They wouldn't get moved back and forth, or would they still get moved back and forth? So if we put it at
I
Jefferson.
think you'd move it probably for like a match, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to have the match
But
necessarily in the cafeteria. But for everyday use and during practice, and probably 99% of the time, it would be at the site that you would have it.
So, yeah.
Because you have to take into consideration, because the mats aren't cheap either, right? So the more you move them.
Another 15,000.
Correct.
the
Well, that's why
less
I'm
the-
asking, is
yeah,
there more of a
yeah.
permanent place
you-
that we could have them?
I
or
think
do
we
they
only
have
have
to
maybe
get
one or
moved?
at most 2 matches during the year anyway, so that's the
Well,
only
for
time.
high school,
For high school,
Yeah.
right, I'm just thinking high school,
Yeah.
right now.
You also have middle school.
But where they would go to, they would be moved, essentially, yeah. But that's obviously a cheaper way to go than to build something.
I'm just
Right,
thinking,
that's why I
if
was
it's,
just saying-
if it's $15,000, I mean, that's a drop in the bucket when you're considering
Right.
all of this other stuff. That's just.
Correct.
yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of money to me, but it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would just need to decide how home's going to be.
Yeah, well, that's why I think there's a lot more collaboration that needs to happen
Right.
outside of this conversation.
Right.
And is there a reason, like, why it couldn't be at the new gym at Washington or in the East Gym at the high school? Like, are those spaces being used for other things?
Because generally the wrestling is usually at the same time the basketball is, so it's hard to intermingle
It's-
the
but-
two.
But we're
I mean-
not having games in the high school East Gym.
But you're running into other seasons, so middle school and high school sports. So both locations, both of those gyms are either used for volleyball or basketball. High school has girls' basketball and boys' basketball in the majority of the season, and it's coming right after volleyball season. So both are kind of,
I
Take it.
say we look at an NPR and possibly having another facility and adding the addition of,
everyone would get along a lot better in our sports world, I'm just saying.
it seems like there's a need. I'm hearing that there's a facilities need, and possibly doing like
Well, and
NPR.
Well, yeah, and that's something,
But
if we were already
coming back-
considering it, just an additional thing to add to it to look at, to alleviate more issues that are already happening.
At JES,
JES, Washington.
or even a modernization of the cafeteria at JES.
That's why I was bringing up the
for, like, You
modernization,
could do a
yeah.
new NPR and a modernization at JES
Yeah.
cafeteria to house other after-school activities that would still be inclusive of JES, and you could access that. And I was looking at your eligibility for, they're calling it the second round of modernization. And it's basically like everything that you took modernization in the first time you ever had access to it is now coming around based on the time, right? For portables, it's 20 years plus one, and then for permanent buildings, 25 years plus one. And at Jefferson, you have a measure of eligibility that will become about $2.5 million in addition to the 1.1 that will become available in May of 2025. So that could kind of serve as two, and we can do that analysis with the timing of when you submit your application. Maybe it's a two-phased submittal, right? Because you can't submit the application until you have the eligibility, but we also would want to get in line as quickly as possible to start the process. So it could be a two-phased approach too. So if the board would like, I could add that to the analysis.
And with the modernization, you can't add square footage, correct?
No. But, let me, hold on one second. I wanted to see on your portables there, because we removed quite a few. Okay, you've removed all of your portables to access that money, so, what's to be removed? Sorry, I was just thinking, like, could we take some square footage that you've already
Oh,
removed and utilize it towards new construction? So,
I thought there was still going to be 2 portables left, even with the new construction. Or are those being removed after the construction's built?
3 after.
Okay. Because we need some more while the build is happening to place those.
Correct.
Okay,
And they're far enough down where they're out of the way.
okay.
So we might as well keep them if we can.
and I can confirm with King Consulting if those are included in the 8 classroom project, or if they would be like kind of extra
Yeah, because
bucket.
it would be amazing if they weren't originally
Yeah,
included.
because then we could add square footage, so.
Anything you would like to ask student board?
No, although I know this is gonna be very far down the line, JH and, the JES is definitely a priority, but, as for the portables at the high school, do you plan to like, just make them all like, so, I can't really explain it without drawing it, but you know how you have your 4 different rows of classrooms, these 2 here are like built in and they're set up, and these 2 rows here are portables. Do you plan to just make these rows here the same as the rows over here, or halls over here, or do you like stacking them? Like, what's the plan for those classrooms? Is there any plan? Is that just?
I'd say the quick answer is there isn't a plan. But that's kind of what we're talking about. We just, if I could, I think there are more pressing issues at this point. And there's only
So much.
very limited amount of money to go around. But I see what you're saying, right? To kind of like they're like one building things instead of a bunch of different portables. So yes, and I think that's part of what the original upgrades were. But as she said before, with the 140-something million, and we did 135 million worth of projects, and we only got a $40 million budget. Naturally, things are going to be left out. So yes. But they certainly could be on the priority list if the board so chose to be, yeah. And that would be actually easier because the square footage would be like for like, right? You would just, instead of having portables, you'd have a building. Right.
And we did have a plan drawn up at one point for the high school with the 2-story building, because you get way more in the same footprint. But
With
I mean, to
less
kind of get rid of one of the
that-
wings,
that's
essentially.
$100 million, and we can move forward.
But also, we looked at, those are probably the most newest portables. Then you have Washington, and then it
Right,
goes.
especially compared to JEH.
Correct.
Right.
Good question. Anything else that we would like to add or discuss before we have our superintendent summaries? Or what was the direction?
Well, I guess I would probably ask, Michael, did you have anything that, are you just kind of listening to what's going on?
I'm just kind of soaking it in.
Okay. Excellent. How about you, Patty?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Renee, do you have anything to add?
This sounds good.
But I can summarize if you'd like me to. So it sounds like to me that, and this is in no particular order, but some of the things we would like to continue to do would be to look at JEH and price that out as far as what that looks like. I would say probably with or without the 2-story action going on. And then the JES, the kind of the MPR / kind of other stuff we spoke about too, and we can kind of look through the square footage game that we talked about, and then either that or potentially also something at Washington to either expand or update the current cafeteria, but I call it MPR, basically, for that. That was kind of the 3 that you kind of sent us on. Is that what you heard?
Yes, that is what I heard. Anything else? Did we capture that?
Yes, and then unless the board has something else, what I'll do is I'll work with the team to bring back basically those 3 opportunities and each option, right? Option 1 and option 2, letting you know full total project and program cost. hard and soft. And then on option 2, it would still be full cost, but then you would be able to see design up until submission to the state agency. So you would be able to understand how many designs you could get completed within that 2.2.
Right, and I would also say one other caveat too would be is to try to, I know we talked a little bit about seeing if we could use some of the funds from Cloverdale,
Yes.
from Cloverdale High School to work over at, the property thing and everything like that too, which. wanna make
Correct.
sure we're-
And I'll work with staff
Look at every
to-
angle.
Yep, we'll work with staff to understand the programs and have a meeting with the Office of Public School Construction to explain the current JEH and CHS, opportunity there.
I mean, we will take free money too, so if there's anyone in the community that just wants to gift, then we'll take that too.
Noted. And if there's any current funding opportunity outside of the state program, we'll bring that as like, hey, we know this program's in the pipe, it would be applicable to this project, et cetera. Not that saying you have the money, it's yours, but that it would be able to generate. We'll do that as well. And if that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me.
Thank you. Therefore, this was just a discussion, so we don't need to take action. Okay. F, public comments on closed session items. At this time, any person may address the board on any closed session item or any item not listed on the agenda pursuant to the Brown Act. The board cannot consider issues or take action on requests during this comment period. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic. And we will be moving to, or I read them first and then move to
Yep.
close? Okay. In closed session, conference with labor negotiators, tax, CSEA, and represented in management, and also G2, public employee performance evaluation superintendent. With that, we move to closed session at 5:37 PM. Hold on, our student rep is coming. We'll reconvene at 6:44. Closed session reportable action taken, there was none. And then discussion, action, consideration, and possible approval of Teachers Association of Cloverdale Retirement Memoriam of Understanding. We are going to table that since, yeah, we're going to table that one. Future agenda items. I heard earlier developer fees, so I would like to place that on our future agenda items. We have field use agreement, employee housing presentation, public comment during board meetings, board bylaws and governance handbook, and then individual sports budget. And I just asked to developer fees, anything else? Board meeting dates, February 21st, 2024, regular board meeting at 6 p.m. And then February 28th, special board meeting at 4:30 p.m.
Move to adjourn.
At
I give that to you.
6:45
I'll second.
p.m. I have a motion by trustee Addison and a second by trustee Candelaria Orr. Preferential?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Opposed? No one's absent.